All right, it's Mark Laughlin. I'm back. This is the episode. We're starting to get into the more meat of this video series. This is the one where we talk about where and when it happens against the fan. Now, self-defense, using a firearm in self-defense, it is not target shooting. Now, it's fighting. Self-defense is fighting. It's not target shooting. So when you go to the range and you're like lining up your shot, one thing to keep in mind, that target is not shooting back. The target is not trying to kill you. The ground is probably very flat and smooth. And you know it's usually in broad daylight. Now where does this stuff really hit the fan? Self-defense, it's like almost 70% of the time, is occurring at night or in very low light conditions. And so what does that mean? That means you're probably not going to be able to see your sights. Even if you got tritium sights, you might be able to see your sights. It's going to be hard to see your target. It's also like 90-some% is very close range. Like 60% are within just 2 or 3 feet, like arm's length distance. And then 90% are within about 15 feet. Very few are going to be beyond 20, 25, 30 feet. So close range, low light, close range. So one of the first things is, since you're going to be so close, is how likely is the pistol going to be able to be even brought into the fight? Are you going to better go immediately to the pistol? Or are you going to have to deal with the threat with some either pushing, punching, backing, retreating, escaping, before you can actually get to your pistol? So those are things to keep in mind. You're going to have obstacles in your way. It's not going to be at the gun range where you've got a smooth, flat area all around you. There's going to be tables, there's going to be chairs, there's going to be maybe, if you're outside, debris, rocks, gravel, hillsides, trees, vegetation, Lego blocks. If you're barefoot, that can be an issue. So you got obstacles to deal with. But one of the key things to remember is there's going to be no range master. There's going to be no referee. You're not going to be able to tap out of this fight. So once it starts, this is for real. This isn't pretty. It's pretty damn repulsive. If you're fighting for your life, this is ugly. So there's no mat to cushion you on the ground if you take a fall or a tumble. It's real world hard stuff out there. Now, Dan Bongino, he covers this a bit in his experience as a Secret Service and I believe FBI agent.
Because as someone who spent a lot of time in law enforcement, folks, violence is an awful, horrible thing. And I'm not talking anybody, but I know the people out there who've been actively involved in this, who have seen real violence up close and personal. It is always the last option, and there's no turning back. There's no turning back. I think the problem with the left, and this is where I was going with this, with their tipping point, where they're actually now condoning aggressive confrontation that is going to lead to violence, is they're living in an environment of what I'm going to call today protected confrontation. You see that? They have grown up, Joe. They have grown. When you understand the difference between protected confrontation and unpredictable, unprotected confrontation, believe me, you will eschew violence at every opportunity. And how when you grow up in a strictly academic, cultural environment and you've never experienced the real world and the real horror of unprotected, unpredictable violence on yourself, you are so easily convinced that violence is the way forward to obtain power. Engaging in controlled violence for 30 plus years of my life, football, that's what this is, controlled violence.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Mixed martial arts has taken its toll. But that controlled violence taught me some valuable things. For 30 years of my life, I've been involved in every martial art known to man. I finally settled in with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA when I was about 25, and I've loved it ever since. But I grappled forever in these grappling schools with really, really tough guys. And I've gone on rounds forever, and you're out of breath, and you got some guy's sweaty T-shirt, true story, falling on your face. It's actually being sucked up your nose, and you can't breathe. And you've been at it for 20 minutes, and you're thinking to yourself, this is the worst experience. It can't get any worse. I can't breathe. This guy's beating me. He's a monster. He's strong. He's got his shoulder in my throat and side control. I can barely breathe. My muscles don't work anymore. And you're thinking to yourself, this can't get any worse. You're thinking, I'm really tough. You know what? It can. Mm-hmm. And my first experience for it getting worse, you know why it can get worse? Because it's controlled. And for years, I rolled around and fought with these guys in a controlled environment where you did one thing and it stopped. You tapped, and just like that, it's over. And you're breathing again, and life is good 5 minutes later when you get your O2 back. The first time I was a police officer and got attacked by a guy in a domestic dispute, I thought I was the toughest guy on earth. I had that idea in my head that because I'd rolled with that guy Boris, true story, for 20 minutes, and it was the worst pain I'd ever felt. I had this idea in my head that because I experienced that in a controlled, protected confrontation environment, that violence in the real world was the same thing. It is not. The mental panic that sets in the first time you realize there will be no tapping out, there will be no quitting. Matter of fact, this will only end when this guy on top of you, who literally took an ironing board and buckled me in half and started jumping on me and attacking me. You realize this will never stop until you stop it. The sense of mental panic that kicks in is not replicable anywhere. It's not. Because it is not a protected confrontation. It is an unpredictable, real-world confrontation where that violence will not stop until you stop it. When you experience that, now I know for a fact, every police officer, you've all been attacked by someone, you've all been punched. I know every military personnel out there who's been in a combat situation or otherwise. You're hearing exactly what I'm talking about, and that red zone panic is something you can never train away. You can never train it away. All you can do is learn to operate in it. You cannot train it away. That fog of war and that fog of unprotected confrontation where you will not be protected. The college administrator will not protect you. The tap will not stop. You cannot tap out. There is a panic that sets in. Everybody will experience it. That panic will scare the living out of you for the rest of your life. The snowflakes don't know that. The social justice warrior crowd, which has grown up insulated in their ideological bubbles, they don't know that. They've never danced, they've never tangoed with unprotected confrontation, ever. They've never danced with that guy, that one guy the Antifa crowd is going to attack, who, God forbid, loses his mind and attacks back. They have never danced. They don't know what unprotected, outside of the bubble confrontation looks like. Therefore, they're not scared of it. Folks, it's my only explanation from someone who's been down that road multiple times, by the way. Was it Halloween, 1999, the first time I heard a bullet whiz past my head. And I got into a foot pursuit. I ran about 100 yards with that NYPD uniform with that nightstick hitting me on the legs. You ever try to sprint 100 yards with a gun belt on? Stuff falling all over the place? No. With a memo book in your back pocket? No. Big fat leather binder sticking in your back pocket? I couldn't breathe. And as I turned the corner, I remember specifically in my head, Joe, An unprotected confrontation where no one was going to save you. Thinking, holy crap, if this guy's around this corner, what am I going to do? I had nothing in the tank, folks. Nothing. Now, he hid under a car and wound up, we caught him, the task force guys that responded caught him about 5 minutes later because I'd put out a description. But I will never, ever, for as long as I live, forget that second before I turned that corner that felt like an eternity where I said to myself, what am I going to do if he's there? No one was going to save you. It wasn't going to be a tap out. There wasn't going to be an I quit. There wasn't going to be a call for a safe space. No one was coming to the rescue with Crayola crayons or color forms. There wasn't going to be a cry room. There wasn't going to be some Hollywood elitist like Peter Fonda who's never had his ass kicked in his entire life. No one was going to save you. That is a horrendous experience. Do you now understand, as my audience, who I love to death, why I say things that may bother you, but I'm just trying to tell you the truth. False bravado is bullshit. I'm sorry. And leave that in there. I am not, any radio host who's a fake tough guy can get on the air. Yeah, man, it's time to start kicking ass, man. Start taking it. You know what? That's bullshit.
And there are rules in sport violence. Out in that real world, there are no rules. In fact, the things that are rules in sport violence are the things you actually do in real world violence. I know it's kind of like stating the obvious, but it's something you got to keep in mind. Going to the gun range and practicing fine motor control, exact hold you're going to use when you're standing still and there's no threat in a very static environment, it's way different than what you're going to probably face in a self-defense situation. And the other thing is, whereas a target, you know what it is, you know how far away it is, you know its size, shape, and its color and layout and everything. In a real world fight, you may know nothing about your target. The aggressor, you don't know his skills, you don't know what skills he brings to the fight, you don't know what weapons he has. It's a dark world there. So, next, because of it being a dark world, your response, your physiological response, is going to be different, way different than what you experience when you're at the gun range, just like chilling with your buddies and shooting guns. And that's what I'm going to get into next. The next video is we're going to cover your body's physiological response to lethal threat.